Hi everyone. In this video, we'll try to learn different methods of inserting the data in the table. Right. So in the previous video, we have seen that how we can create tables in multiple ways, how we can create backup of the table, how we can take the backup of the table if you want the selective column or if you want the selective data, right? So let's try to learn different insert methods, right? So there is one conventional way of inserting the data. What is that conventional way? For example, I have the employee table. So what is the conventional method? Insert into EMP table. I have to use a values keyword, values, and I have to give the values, whatever values that I want to give for that particular row, right? For example, I have a employee number called 103, comma, e-name is Pavan, or Pavan I have, so I can say Rahul, and I have a job, right? So I can say manager. So whenever you are inserting a varchar value, simply code them inside the single quote, manager, comma, manager ID. You can say any manager ID, and I want to insert hire dates, right? So either I can use toDate function or I can simply give a date. So let me just simply give a date 20 and 03-2025. In this way also you can insert the date, but the better way is that you use a toDate function and specify what is date, what is DD, what is MM, and what is YYYY. I'll give you that way also. So I can use a toDate function. ToDate means you are converting this number into a date. You are specifying a database, right? So, but I told you, when you are inserting the date, you have to quote that particular date into a single quote. I can say comma, and I can say that DD dash MM dash YYYY. This is how we can insert a date, right? And after the bracket, let me insert salary also. So I can say 15,000, and then commission I can say 800, comma, department number is 10, and close the bracket. Here we are starting the bracket, and this is the closing bracket for this. Now this is a single record that I'm going to insert. For every single record, now for example, you want to insert 10 records, we have to run 10 different insert statement with different values, right? Here I have to change the values. Now for example, employee number is a primary key, so it should be unique, right? It should be different. It has to be 6, right? So this is how you have to run the insert statement. Now let me delete the other insert statement, and I can select this, and I can simply press Ctrl Enter. It says one row inserted. This is the conventional method of inserting the data. What is the other way? Now you can use insert all. What is insert all? If you are going for the 1Z0071 basic Oracle SQL certification, all this concept really matters, right? You can crack the certification, and if you have cracked the certification, you can show it to your interview, to your client interview, to your project interview, that I am 1Z0071 Oracle SQL certified. That will really help you. Let me just give you the number 1Z0071, the Oracle basic SQL database, Oracle SQL database certification. It's a paid certification. You can go to online, search for this particular certification, enroll for this, and just simply it will be an MCQ exam. So if you crack it, definitely it will be an added advantage to your profile. All right, this is given by the Oracle authorities, proper Oracle authorities, right? And this certification has a value. So when you are going through the course, each and every concept that I'm teaching you, this will help you to crack the 1Z0071 Oracle SQL database certification. I can guarantee you that if you watch each and every video properly, and if you practice properly, definitely this is not a very much tough task. It's a very easy task after this. So this is one method of inserting the data. Let me come back to the topic, and this is another way. This is another way of inserting the data, right? I can use insert all. Now whenever you use insert all statement, at the bottom you always have to have a select statement. That's a rule. Whenever you see insert all statement, at the end, at the bottom, you should always have a select statement. You should always have a select statement. That's the rule, fundamental rule. So if you're having an MCQ question and you see insert all, and if you do not find any select statement at the bottom, that means that's a wrong option. You can, avoid that option and you can choose the right option. So how it works? Insert all. That means I want to insert multiple records to the table. Insert all into this particular table, destination table 1, destination table 2, and destination table 3. You should have these three tables. First of all, these three tables should have been created. Then only you can able to insert the data. First you have to create the table and then only you can insert the data, right? I am specifying the column, what column I am gonna insert. I am saying values and I am giving the column name from the source table. What is my source table? EMP is my source table in this case, right? And this is my destination table, or this is my target table. That means I'm inserting the data into this target table. हम इस target table में data insert कर रहे हैं. कहाँ से कर रहे हैं? Source table से कर रहे हैं. Okay. कौन कौन से column हमने populate करना है? ID, name and date of करके एक column है हमारे पास. Now these three columns are being populated from these three columns. Right? I am not giving a hard code value. Here you are giving hardcore value. You are typing the values, right? Here you are just giving the column name. Now from where these columns are coming? These columns are coming from this particular table, right? Here also I'm mentioning select EMP number, ename and hire date. Now one more thing to understand over here is that you are populating this column from this column, this column from this column, and this column from this column, right? You're populating these columns from this column. Now the data type of this column should be same with this, data type of this column should be same with this, and the data type of this column should be same with this. If the data types are matched, if data types are matching, then only you can populate these columns, right? And then you can say select this column from EMP table, right? Now let me just check whether we have this table or not. Select star from destination table 1. If we do not have this table, we have to create this table. It says table or view does not exist. So we have, so we have these three tables are created. We have these three tables already created. Let me just give you a brief idea about these tables. Select star from this particular table. Select this and you can see we have this table available with these three columns. We have the second table also. Select star from this table, select this select query, and we have this empty table, and we have one more table which is also an empty table, that is your third table, right? Yeah, so we want to populate these three tables using this source table. So this is our target table and this is our source table, right? Remember this terminology, source table and target table. I'm going to use this terminology a lot now in my next examples also. So if you have that clarity, then you can learn data engineering also very easily. Data engineering as in, ETL concepts, how you can load the target table, how you can use the source table. That is a different subject and concept altogether, but everything is SQL. If you know it, the concept, it will be easy for you. So let me select it, and we're gonna populate these tables, these three tables using this one single source table, right? It says 48 rows inserted, 48 rows inserted, right? So let me just simply have the look on the target table. So this is your first target table. How many records are inserted? We have 16 record in the EMP table now. So 16 record in this table, 16 record in this table, and 16 record in this table, right? And just look at this table also. All the three tables are populated with the same data using this source table, right? So this is how you can use insert all statement to populate multiple table. But in this case, we are populating this multiple table with the same data, That doesn't make much sense, right? But in my next example, I will give you one more example which makes more sense. which make more sense, right? Now this example makes more sense. We are having conditional insert, right? We are having conditional insert. What is conditional insert? Now this concept you are maybe seeing it for the first time, but this is really important concept in order to understand the ETL process or in order to understand the in-depth SQL. What is conditional insert? You are using that same syntax. Let me just copy the concept over here. Conditional insert data into multiple tables, right? So I'm using insert all statement, and after that I'm using when clause. I'm using a when keyword, you can say. When salary is less than or equals to 1500, then into this particular table we have to insert the data. This is the 3 column that we need to populate, and these are the values that we need to populate, right? When salary between this number and this number, then we have to insert data into this particular table, and we have to populate this column values, this column from the source table. Again we are using a when clause, again we are using the when condition, and we are saying salary when greater than 2500, then we have to insert data into this particular table, and we have to insert values from this particular thing. And at the end what I'm saying, select these columns from EMP table, right? Now let us see whether it is working or not. Or first of all, let me delete the data from the target table, because we already have inserted data into the target table. So I'm just, for the understanding purpose, to make you understand whether the data has been populated or not, I'm just trying to delete the data. So delete from the first table, delete from the second target table, and delete from the third target table, right? So let me just run this code. It says 16 rows inserted, right? Let me just again check the table whether it is populated or not. Now previously we have deleted the data, then I have ran the insert query. This is your first target table, so I can say select star from this first target table, select the code and run it. So we have 7 record in this table. What about the second record or the second table? We have 2 record inserted in this table, and we have 3. So let me just simply say we have total again 7 record inserted in this table, right? So that's how it works. Now this makes sense. We have one single source table and multiple target tables, right? One single source table and multiple target tables. And how you are going to insert the data into these multiple target tables? You are going to insert data into these multiple target tables using this condition, right? Using these conditions, right? Now one more thing to insert, or now one more thing to understand, that here we are populating only 3 columns, but from the select query we are selecting 4 columns. Why? These 3 columns are being populated, and the one more column which is called a salary column, this is populated. This is not populated, but this is being used in the query, this is being used in the code. So when you are specifying this column, when you are using this column, you have to specify this column also. I am saying when salary is less than 1500, between this number, or greater than 2500, on this condition you have to insert the data. All right. So this is your multi-table insert, or you can say conditional insert into multiple tables. We have even other ways also to insert the data. What are the other ways? I can show you that this is one way to insert your data. Let me show you. Insert into this particular table, select star from EMP, right? Insert into this table, select star from EMP. This is also one way to insert the data. You can directly insert all the data into this particular table. You should have this particular table. Now let me run this code, whether it works or not. If it doesn't work, that means we have to create the emp_test table. It says table or view does not exist. That means this particular target table is not available, So what we do is, first of all, we can create the table. I told you the way that you can create the table. I can say create table, this particular name as select star from emp where 1 is equals to 2, right? Let me select the code and let me run it. It says emp_test, that table has been created, right? Let me select the code and let me run this now. It says 16 rows inserted, right? That means the target table has to exist first. Once the target table has to exist first, right? Once the target table is there, the empty target table, then you can populate the target table from this select statement. It says insert into this table, select star from emp. Now let me do a query, select star from this. So let me do a query on this target table. So we have 16 number of records available, in the target table. All right. Now, what are the other ways that we can insert the data? We can also do conditional insert here as well, right? What is the query? Just simply try to understand the query. Insert into this particular table, select star from emp table where salary is greater than 1500, right? So in this target table, only those record will be inserted जिनका सैलरी 1500 से कम है, whose salary is whose salary is greater than 1500, not less than, greater than symbol, right? So let me just first of all delete the data from the target table just to show you an example. So if I say delete from this particular table, it says 16 rows deleted. I'll do one more select query just to show you the table. Select star from this table. Let me run this. I have 0 record, right? I have 0 record. So let me just simply select this code and it says 9 rows inserted. 9 rows instead of 16 rows total, 9 records are inserted, right? So you can say 9, you can see 9 records, right? So you are inserting data into this table from this particular table. This is your target table, and in this case this is your source table, right? What is one more way of inserting the record? Now instead of inserting all the records, we are saying select star, right? Instead of inserting all the records, I'm inserting very few records, or I'm inserting few columns. I'm only populating few columns, not all the columns, right? So what I'm saying, insert into this particular table emp number, comma ename, comma job, comma manager ID. Select emp number, comma ename, comma job, comma manager ID or manager from emp table. This is your target table. This is your source table. And how many columns you're populating? I'm only populating these columns, right? Let me again delete the data from the target table. It says 9 rows deleted. Now let me again try to select the data from the target table. There is no record available, but we have not only 4 columns, right? We have not only 4 columns. Apart from these 4 columns, we have another columns as well, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I populate only the 4 column, how many other columns will be, or what about the other columns? What will be happening with them? Let me run the code. It says 16 record inserted. Let me select the code and let me run the code. So you can see that those 4 columns which you have populated are populated. Total how many records? Total 16 records. So you must understand this concept: source table, target table, how many columns and how many number of records, right? Table is all about column and rows. So how many number of rows? 16 rows. That means 16 records. How many columns? 4 columns, right? Now the other column which you have not populated, those are populated with null values. Null means nothing, empty, right? So those columns are populated with null values. So this lecture has become quite long. So I have just tried to, given you the idea that how you can do multiple insert statement, or how multiple ways you can insert the data, right? We have one more method, or we have one more way. So just try to see this also, the last example for this video. Insert into this particular table, populate this column, select this column from EMP where job is equals to manager. Is it possible to apply a filter at the end? Of course, yes. It will populate these 4 columns in the target table only for manager. It will only select data from for managers, right? Let me do the same step. Let me delete the records. 16 rows are deleted. Let me select the records. You should be finding 0 records because the table is empty. Now if I run this, it will only populate data for managers. So we have 4 managers in the source table. Let me do a select star for the target table, right? So we have 1 2 3 4 records, 4 managers, because you have applied a filter, and then we have null values, right? That's how it works. So I hope you understood the concept for insert statement. Multiple ways you can do insert statement: conditional insert, using the when clause, or using the when. Now after that when, we are using then also. So please remember the syntax. If you are going for any of the MCQ exam, please remember the syntax. When salary is less than 1500, then insert into this. When between and end, then you do this. When salary is greater than 2500, then you do this, right? And select the data from this particular table. This is how it works. And what is the other way? Insert into this table, select star from this, and you have a conditional insert here as well. Insert into this particular table, select star from this table where this condition has to satisfy. You can also apply some other fair clause also. Here you have inserting all the records. Here you are only inserting few records, few columns. You're populating few columns. So thank you so much for watching. Till then, happy learning.